for everyone, everywhere, towards climate awareness. The master of ceremonies participants. I think I deserve a letter. Before we go straight to the order of events, I would like to acknowledge some very distinguished personalities, which we have both physical and online. I will do my honors best to please pronounce each and every of the names, so bear with me. First, I would like to welcome His Royal Majesty, Oba Adeniyi Ajakai, Olui of Ekiti Kingdom, joining us virtually. Thank you so much, sir, for honoring our invitation. I would also like to recognize the United Nations Resident Coordinator for Nigeria, Mr. Matthias Schrein. Please a round of applause. He's very much welcome. I would also like to recognize the Executive Governor of Niger State, who will be represented by the Commissioner for Environment, who is also joining us virtually. I would also like to recognize the Public Affairs Officer, the United States Consul General, because he was actually here previously, but he has a recorded opening remark. Please a round of applause. And without forgetting, I would like to recognize the Deputy Consul General of the Italian Embassy, Mrs. Bellanova Gracia. Please a round of applause. I'm also not going to forget our wonderful partners at LG. Thank you so much for being a very key stakeholder in this event. Please a round of applause for LG. We can't forget them. And also for our wonderful audience, give a round of applause for yourselves to do this event. Without further ado, I'll be handing over the mic virtually to our keynote speaker, Mr. Matthias Schrein, the United Nations Resident Coordinator for Nigeria. I'll read his profile. Mr. Matthias Schrein is the United Nations Resident Humanitarian Coordinator for Nigeria, and prior to this position, we worked with the United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East in different capacities, acting as the Chief of Staff from August to October 2017, responsible for providing support to the Commissioner General and the Deputy Commissioner General. He was also the Director of Operations from October 2017 to August 2021, leading almost 13,000 strong team in providing essential services and humanitarian aid to more than 1.4 million Palestinian refugees in Gaza. He was also the Director Representative Office at New York from January 2017 to October 2017. He was Director for Syria from September 2016 to December 2016, and the Director for Lebanon Affairs April 2015 to 2016. That is quite an amazing profile. Please a round of applause as I hand over the mic virtually to the United Nations Resident General for Nigeria, Mr. Matthias Schrein. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the sound is not very good at my end, so let me just check if you can hear me properly.
So don't worry, we can hear you perfectly well. I hope you can hear me.
Just to come in again, I didn't hear the answer. Can you hear me properly? Should I proceed?
Yes, we can hear you properly from our end.
Okay. I just saw the chat message. So thank you very much. Let me proceed. Allow me to virtually stand on established protocol and wish you all a good afternoon in Lagos and online. I'm very pleased to be delivering these virtual remarks on behalf of the United Nations system in Nigeria at this important post-COP27 dialogue. I thank very much on behalf of the UN, the Creative Youth Community Development Initiative, and other partners for organizing this timely event. We really do appreciate your efforts towards achieving the 2030 development agenda and the related sustainable development goals. and particularly your Solution 17 model, which seeks to harness, in my understanding, Nigeria's useful energy and untapped creativity to solve the most pressing issues of our time. Undoubtedly, the climate crisis, I'm sure we all agree on that, is probably the defining challenge of our era, and its impacts are already being felt across vulnerable communities around the globe. Now, we also all know, I believe, that while Africa has accounted for only 2 to 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions, it is suffering disproportionate damage and losses to its biodiversity, its food production, lives and livelihoods, and economic growth. And sadly, Nigeria in this regard is no exception. We're having this meeting, this dialogue in the aftermath of catastrophic flooding across many Nigerian states, and you all know what was involved. There were over 1.3 million people, as an example, who were forced to leave their homes as a result of the flood. So in my mind, it is beyond doubt that climate change is happening and is already affecting millions of there is also enormous economic cost. That climate change is already costing out 100 billion per annum. That is a significant slice of GDP as it stands. And without proper climate action, the estimates suggest it will rise much more significantly into the future. So it's clear for the UN, as I'm sure for all of you, that if we are to realize or to support and play a role in realizing the development aspirations of the Nigerian people, the time is now for urgent climate action and accelerated efforts in this respect. It was a relief for us to see an important step towards climate justice being taken at the recent COP27 in Egypt. The landmark decision to create a loss and damage fund was something unimaginable only a few months ago. The fund, from our perspective, is a much needed political recognition that populations who suffer the most must be helped by all. It is a promising first step, but it is just a first step. It has to be now operationalized, and an empty fund is not much value. So we know the next step will happen probably before the end of March 2023 with the inaugural meeting of a transitional committee that will be tasked with making recommendations on how to operationalize the fund. We also saw some significant progress on adaptation at the conference in Egypt, with governments agreeing a way forward, for example, for the global goal on adaptation. This will conclude at COP28 and inform the first global stocktake, improving the resilience of those on the front lines of the climate crisis. We are aware that we think new pledges of more than $230 million were made to the adaptation fund, and obviously this will help some of the most vulnerable communities around the globe adapt to climate change through very concrete, specific solutions. Another promising development at COP27 was the launch of the African Carbon Markets Initiative, a partnership which includes Nigeria. Carbon credits are a largely untapped, innovative finance model on this continent. Nevertheless, I think our Secretary General Antonio Guterres said we have not yet left the emergency ward when it comes to climate change and action. So there's much homework left after COP27 and little time. To tackle climate change, we must also follow a whole of society approach. And again, this meeting is significant in that respect. It is clearly not the responsibility of one person, one organization, or one sector alone. We all have a role to play. That includes the private sector, which is critical in investing in clean energy technologies, scaling up renewables, and building a circular economy. It includes, of course, civil society, academia, and individuals. And one of the roles of these three is to raise awareness. Of course, that's important, but also then to move on, propose innovative solutions, and to put pressure, so to do advocacy, to demand actions from leaders. It includes, in our case here in Nigeria, the government. which must continue to be in the lead and in providing the necessary policy frameworks and incentives to drive the transition to clean energy and to expand mitigation and adaptation initiatives. And it, of course, has to include the UN system, and we do remain fully committed. I know I can say this on behalf of the 19 UN agencies, 19 agencies who are present in Nigeria and who are trying to support the government in its various efforts to address climate change, including, for example, the implementation of Nigeria. I'm sure you know the country's pathway to achieving net zero emissions by 2060. The UN currently already provides technical expertise, financial resources, and capacity building through a number of environmentally focused programs, such as the Great Green Wall, the REDD Plus project for reforestation, and the hydrocarbon pollution remediation project in Ogoni Land. In closing and in thanking you again for this opportunity, our world is clearly in a race to net zero, a race, as our Secretary General frequently underlines, we cannot afford to lose. We all have a stake in the fight against climate change, and we all have a role to play. Let's work together to ensure that Nigeria plays its part and can play its part in tackling the probably most defining challenge of our lifetime. I wish you all fruitful discussions. Thank you very much.
Role to play. COP27 has come and gone. Yet what are we going to do? We have more work and there's time. Going on, I would like to call on the marketing manager for LG Electronics West Africa, Mr. Paul Uba, who will be talking on sustainable production and consumption the way forward. Thank you.
His Royal Majesty, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, invited guests, I'd like to say welcome to this wonderful event. We're very proud to be to partner with the COP27 on this first act. We don't know what global warming is exactly all about. And yet today we are here to the importance of ensuring that we slow down this climate change. So today I'm talking briefly about sustainable production and consumption moving forward. Before I start speaking, what is sustainable living? Sustainable living is simply best using best resources. Every day, every time we recognize, every time we carry one task or the other, it affects them. Right now, we have a whole lot of plastics in the ocean. There are a lot of 17 goals organization has been set aside to ensure that these goals are achieved by the year 2030. All right, so sustainable living is only achievable if people and organizations come together with a shared vision and mutual respect. In recent years, LG has been incorporating environment, social, and sustainable business strategies and operations, since an awareness of the need for ESG in business has become more clear. As a responsible corporate system itself, LG recognizes the importance of applying ESG practices to day-to-day operations if it wants to achieve its ambitious goals. Of positive coexistence, crucial to the future of the planet and people. LG has long been pursuing a truly inclusive environment for people from all walks of life in the best way we can, providing easy, accessible products everyone can use regardless of their abilities. Now, what's the way forward? The Better Life 2030 plan is the next phase in LG's mission to inspire users to their ends, building on its long-standing goals for establishing a diverse, inclusive society. The company is now introducing a complete action plan and detailed performance indicators to strengthen bonds with people, including suppliers, employees, and consumers, to promote more of we and less of we. As part of this plan, LG plans to incorporate knowledge and expertise to enable simpler and more efficient operations, establish clear core metrics to assess the workforce's diversity, develop universally accessible products, and more. The Better Life Plan 2030 includes 6 ESG commitments, 8 of which are aimed to significantly improve the company's environmental performance by reducing its greenhouse emissions using recycled materials in its products. For example, LG has committed to becoming carbon neutral by 2030 by reducing emissions emitted from its production processes. To achieve this, the company plans to reduce by 50% 1.93 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalents generated in 2017 by creating more energy efficient facilities and adopting emission reduction technologies. Working closely with partners, LG fosters a sustainable ecosystem across the entire supply chain to create safer working environments and stable supply system. LG has been encouraging suppliers to adhere to globally recognized management standards and health and safety management certifications to help them maintain a self-inspection and ratio under 0.5%. For example, presenting excessive work hours or better working to gain more health and safety certifications and providing resources and expertise so suppliers can experience ESG management practices. Assessing new suppliers is another integral part of LG's approach, which is why it's applying stricter ESG evaluation criteria for its corporate partnership. Since LG embraces people-oriented management, its doors are also open to talents regardless of their inherited traits or diverse identities. Moving forward, the company aims to provide suitabilities with more career opportunities. By 2030, the company will have created various job opportunities for people with disabilities, and to ensure all employees are equally recognized. Also introduce more company-wide diversity training programs, which are really ongoing. When it comes to new product innovation, that takes the viewpoint of its myriad features. The company's products must be universally functional and convenient, which means they must be easily usable by elderly, young, and disabled people to ensure not even the same person is excluded. The objective of adapting accessibility features by 2025 and providing user manuals in every product by 2030. LG is teaming up with the consumer group disabled advisory group made up of users with varying disabilities to hear their views and reflect them into every product going forward. LG is also extending its efforts to boost accessibility by addressing customer touch points that extend beyond its products. For example, sign language kiosks and barrier-free services will be adopted to provide the most accessible to it. LG's vision for a sustainable world has been shaped by its guiding principle, a better life for all. The company continues to foster a greener, more resilient Earth for all by pursuing carbon neutral business practices and circular economy, standing with its suppliers, employees, and consumers to form us that results in a more diverse and inclusive society. It's one step forward. It's one step towards a brighter future for everyone. This is LG's Better Life School, and the journey has not been long. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paul. LG has place such a monument role in success. Thank you. Join us today. Yes. In African time, and that's when in the United Nations. And then the Italian embassy opened their guests to come in for that exhibition. Some of us are still a round of applause to Italian residents for all our guests, over 800 to come right there. All the stuff that we do as solution 17 out all protocol Africans to global problems. We have talked for years. This is the time to talk, which is very cheap. We're turning to action. And we're not just leaving any stone unturned. We're working from, if you have children in nursery, you got us in primary, in secondary, in university, post-university, corporations, we're ready for you. So the whole essence of this is to let you know that a journey started in 2020 actually with Solution 17 for Climate Action in Covenant University, and here we are today. By next year, you're going to be seeing our products all around Nigeria because we're setting the pace in climate smart agriculture. I welcome my former mention that His Royal Majesty, the Oluyomi Adeni Ajakaye, for joining us. That village or that town or the city is going to be hosting our first tech-driven agroforestry in Nigeria, and that's why we have on April 22, 2023, 2021, I joined President Biden and the world leaders virtually from London for the 2021 Leaders Summit on Climate. The remark by President Biden got me and my team on our toes since April 23, 2021. The president looked away from the current and the future problems associated with the radical change to see possibilities. He reiterated the need for collaboration with cities, green transportation, sustainable agriculture, and ecosystem for industrial revolution across community worldwide. And that's why we are there. We have fidelity on ground right now. We have the embassies. We have so many other organizations joining us. And we have Caleb School. This is where we have our 50 trees flourishing. Okay? As I was listening to his remark, back to the speech, I began to see opportunities to create millions of green jobs, clean energy, a shift from fossil fuel, production of next-gen electric vehicles, green transportation, sustainable agriculture, and all the rest. Now, you know, we can genuinely keep the earth temperature rise below 20 degrees Celsius if we all work together. It's not just going to be about Solution 17, it's going to be about me and you, all of us working together, collaborating, basically, to change the world in unity of purpose. The president further said, no nation
can solve this crisis on their own. The world leaders, and particularly those that represent the world's largest economies, must step up, and that was also reiterated by the UN Resident Coordinator earlier on. By the end of 2021, as a project managed by the UN experts, I completed the design of our climate action program in Nigeria, along with a comprehensive implementation plan. The program was a follow-up to that 2021 Leader Summit that was organized by President Biden. And of course, the program started with my book. I published the first book last year, The Green Entrepreneurs, just to understand everything that was led through the President Biden's forums. Now look at our action. I'll go really quick on this. By June 5, in collaboration with United Nations Information Center for Nigeria, we launched Niger Climate Now, which is a call to young people to redesign sustainable solutions to climate adaptation in Nigeria. Next. By September 21, 2021, in partnership with German Consulate, Italian Consulate, British High Commission, and UNIC Nigeria, 34 finalists and 4 artists were unveiled to the world. One of the artists is right here with me, Angela. We have 2 now. Okay, Angela Olariwaju and Michael Toby. Just stand up for recognition. By that same time, they started to depict all the beautiful paintings you're seeing outside. They are the 34 solutions. They were co-created by 34 people from north, east, west, and south of Nigeria. We co-created those solutions, we took them to action on canvas. And whatever you are seeing on those canvases, they are not just painting, they are problem effects and solutions to climate change, and it's global. By October 7, 2021, the exhibition was hosted by the British High Commission. November 1, like I said earlier, Italian Consulate in Lagos hosted the launch of the first virtual gallery in the world. That's the first. We're putting that for the world to see. So anyone around the world can actually be done. By November 7, 2021, we hosted the first climate change innovation hub. That is what you have seen. How do we turn all of these problems? We're looking for profit, not only for products, but looking for social impact. And the only way we can attract the youth population of Nigeria is to see, show me the money. If I'm putting my solution on the table, and by April 7, 2022, right at the Italian Consulate, something was announced as the first step. Because in our organization, we don't just talk, we see. So we launched something called Trees from Mars. That was the project. At that time, at the Italian Consulate, it was just a mere project announced. But ladies and gentlemen, by April 7, 2022, Trees from Mars was launched by the Lagos State government in collaboration with other partners, Mercedes-Benz, Robert Bosch, Giraffe Foundation, Suzuki Nigeria, and one other organization I'll remember later. So by May 29, 2022, Niger Climate Now was shortlisted by Prince Talal International Prize. That was one of the biggest prizes in the world for year 2021 under the climate action. And I learned from them that thousands of organizations subscribed, only 6 of us made them last. On July 1, 2022, so the partner, the Eco Matcher, based in Singapore. And that is why in all the schools that we have in Lagos, as of today, we have almost 3,000 trees. Okay? And right about, we could show you where the trees are located, how many carbons has been sequestered from day 1 till now, because we are monitoring them. None of our trees. Once they are dying, what happens to them? We replace them. Why? Because we have tree managers. Some of the students you are seeing here today, they are our tree managers at the Kenya British. So we have established what we call 20 clubs of 50. Because we have the Commission for Environment, if you are in that with them. How many trees have been planted by Lagos? This is 7 million to date. Our president also announced 25 million. My big question was, where are the trees? There was a big silence. People that were at that event, they could be a witness. And I said, this is the first time in West Africa that our own tree will monitor them from our homes, from our offices, from countries, and all of that. I'm sure before you leave here, we will tell you exactly how many carbon we have sequestered in Agege, in Ikorodu, in Lekki, and different places where these trees are planted. Why are we doing this? We want to really create action, and those creating of 50, we are 50 students under our organization. We are mentoring them into what we call climate education, innovation, and innovation technology. So we are creating next generation of entrepreneurs right from the school. So EcoMacha partnered with us. Our back end, so nobody can actually change. We can't go and change our trees behind us. Our back end is sitting right in Singapore. So for anything IT, we talk to them and we work collaboratively to ensure that Nigeria will work, Africa will work, by the power of technology. Between April and October 2022, we had all the trees that we needed to plant for this year, all planted, all captured, all on the radar. Anyone around the world can be there. September 24, 2022, that was our big goal. We realized that they love entertainment in Nigeria. They love entertainment on social media. Wow, how do we get into those people? Because we realized that we need people. We can't do this alone. We need mothers, we need fathers, we need everybody to cooperate with us. So we switched our gear into using the power of entertainment through movie, art, and documentary to spread the words of climate change around the world. We want everybody to be involved in one way or the other. So the Just Art campaign started in collaboration with LG, Electronics Nigeria, and Global for us to pass our message, not just in Nigeria, but across the world. So the first series of our Just Art magazine was launched. All of you, this all stage, will get a copy of this by your phones before you leave. So what are we doing? We're telling people that, yeah, there are problems. These are the effects of the problems. And this is the solution to the problem. And this is how we can turn the problem into profit and social impact. That is all this is our message to Nigeria, and this is our message to the world. And we'll release our first movie series called Just Art. And that is for you to actually let you have access to that as soon as we finish. December 12, 2022, we completed the tree planting process with Suzuki Nigeria. That was about 3 days ago. Yes. Right? We were at Caleb School, and something big happened. I'm tempted not to talk about it right now. But I'm tempted not to talk about it. Something big had happened. The organization we're partnering with, grace of God. If you're driving any car in this Lagos, and I don't want to mention the brands of this car, or you don't want to plant tree, you will plant 5 4. Your car is planting each one tree in Lagos. We're not going to beg for money. This is going to be happening because our organization has decided to see this is a global project. They need to align their CSR and sustainability into this, and this is really happening. And this November, up till next year, the results of everything we'll be doing in the past, the movie, the documentary, and all of that is going to turn into tech-driven agroforestry. And believe me, that would happen in 3 states in Nigeria. And that's why we have Niger State online. The ministry, the commissioner for planning is online, and commissioner for environment. And that will be repeated also in Ekiti. We're taking off in Ekiti. We're taking off in Ekiti. And we're going to Ondo, and at the same time, we will run in Niger. These are projects that will give Nigerians the formula. We are not going to do this alone. We're going to do with everybody. About tech-driven agroforestry, I'm going to be back with calls to action, and you'll see what we're doing. We're using technology to plant, to produce food, to make Nigeria better. This food crisis should not meet us, right? And this is the time to act. Just act. Thank you very much.
For that very powerful speech. Solution 17 has done so much in pushing forward climate action. And she mentioned the paintings that were all exhibited, which was previously exhibited at the Italian COP28 last year. And they all speak of one thing, 78, climate change. And without further ado, two of my colleagues are currently actually here to talk about their paintings. So I'd like to invite to the stage Michael Toby and Angela Alariwaji to talk about their paintings.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to be before you. Yes, as an artist and a street painter, I believe that with the knowledge I possess, I should be able to mitigate change on climate change. So, at my house, I'm creating a series of paintings, and in my paintings, I make clear the need to participate in raising awareness on climate change. Because I personally believe that art is the medium of expression. And with that, I can pass my message across to millions across the globe. And with these paintings, I believe that the current call on national, local, and global policymakers to take action on climate change. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests. My name is Angela Alariwaji, a climate artist and a student from the university. So, quick question, please. Okay, so while on my way there this morning, I took the BRT, and because this was my first time, and there was a card, and it made me think, what if this was the only public transportation in Lagos State or in Nigeria as a whole? It would make sense because the road was free, transportation to this place was easy, and this is tech, and at the same time, it's helping the climate if we think about it, because there's reduction in carbon emission. The road is not as jam-packed as it is with the other transport schemes. So it just came to my head. It was an idea, and I was trying to interpret that in a painting. That climate change is not just from planting trees. It's not just from reducing the amount of plastics that we use, but in transportation as well. And this is the thing that our government needs to implement because they help the society. They help us generally. I mean, when you're tired of driving and you feel like you want to move to this place and you don't want to drive, just take your car and you're good to go, basically. So I just thought of it. And climate change also is not a thing for the government. I want every one of us to remind us that we have a part to play when it comes to climate change. With the amount of plastics that we use, the foods that we eat, the clothes that we buy, the way we recycle these things have a very, very important role to play in the world at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Angie and Michael. It's so funny that it's been almost a decade that we've been doing a lot of this. We're just starting our journey as kids on the Vision of the Child platform, pioneered by the one and only conservation. It's been such an amazing journey. So right now, I'll be handing the mic over virtually to our next speaker, who is joining us from Ekiti State to enlighten us on the promotion of food security through tech-driven agroforestry and practical solutions for the kingdom of Ekiti. Please make welcome. Please give a very royal welcome to this royal majesty of Adekunle Ajayi, the Royal of Ekiti.
Good afternoon to everybody. It is my privilege to address this epic conference. Hello? Hope you are hearing me. Okay. Thank you very much. While adopting the already established protocol, let me specially recognize the United Nations Resident Coordinator for Nigeria, Mr. Matthias Kimi, the Public Affairs Officer, United States Consulate General, Lagos, Mr. Joe Krush, members of the Diplomatic Mission, the esteemed panelists, and guests. I bring you greetings from my kingdom in Ekiti, the city of praise. It gladdens my heart to be part of this post-2022 United Nations Climate Change Conference, or otherwise referred to as COP27, Conference of the Parties, dialogue put together by Solution 17 for Climate Action. Like everywhere in the world, Nigeria is already experiencing the effects of climate change. We have seen variable and extreme weather events, increased temperatures, droughts, desertification, land degradation, and loss of biodiversity. There is soil erosion, floods, and low crop yield in my community. And this is caused by increased duration and intensity of rainfall. These changes have led to food insecurity, which has disrupted livelihood, poverty, and conflicts over little resources. To curb poverty and unemployment and promote decent work, wealth creation, and entrepreneurship in Ekiti community towards the actualization of SDGs, we reach out to the team of Solution 17 for a partnership to drive our green agenda. I'm glad to inform you that we are partnering with Solution 17 to promote and implement sustainable projects that will promote food security, reduce the impact of climate change, and build the capacity of youth and vulnerable women whilst creating rural prosperity among my people. Sustainable to kickstart the intervention, our local government, Araromi LCDA in Ekiti, has completed a website showcasing the potentials of our community. It is the first of this kind in any local government in Nigeria. Sustainable development is the responsibility of every part of society across the world. It can only be achieved with linkages across the goals between institutions, governments, companies, NGOs, local governments, and the people. In collaboration with Solution 17, we have established clusters for women and youth, revamped the existing cooperatives, approved farm settlements and incentives that will support the goal of Ekiti, green project and food basket. We are fully prepared to work collaboratively with Solution 17 team and other stakeholders to achieve the following: to implement the project that will deliver access to resources to boost productivity, to support women and youth, to increase access to markets, to provide training that will enhance knowledge and development of solutions, to boost rural economies, to increase skill, increase environmental consciousness, provision of a better standard of living, and access to technology. Permit me at this junction to just put it on record that we are already collaborating and partnering with the International Tree Foundation and GADEF, and this is with the support of the British Council in Lagos. For now, we've been able to plant about 2,500 trees that we are already monitoring. Like so, COP27 has come and gone. This is the right time to move from talk to action and create a green and prosperous community while averting the looming food crisis and environmental pollution. I will personally lead key leaders from my community to COP28 in Dubai by December 2023, God willing. We are determined to show the world that change is possible. We will mobilize women, youth, farmers, leaders, and kings of other communities towards the actualization of the United Nations Agenda 2030 for sustainable development. ladies and gentlemen, and members of the press, we assure you of our readiness to support the implementation of the tech-driven agroforestry in Ekiti. With my determination and the cooperation of our great people, we will achieve our goal. Thank you. God bless Ekiti. God bless Ekiti. And God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You are welcome.
Thank you so much, sir. We can't wait to actually kickstart the tech-driven agroforestry project, not only in Ekiti, but around the world. And now to a very interesting aspect of this program, and I think should be the main event. We have a panel session filled with very great minds today, and I'm going to be reading each and every one of their profiles as they join us on stage. I'll be starting with Mr. Godson Ikebi, the manager of sustainability and climate change, PwC Nigeria. Please give a round of applause. Mr. Godson is a sustainability, ESG, and sustainable development advisor. He holds a master's in marketing communication from the School of Media and Communications, Pan-Atlantic University, Lagos, Nigeria. He was a founding research fellow of the Knowledge Economic Group, a think tank that conducted research on the knowledge of economy in Nigeria. Please give a round of applause for him as he joins the panel session. Next, I'll be calling on Dr. Tiwalade Adeniyi, PhD sustainability and ESG expert with over 12 years of experience in sustainability, risk management, and external capacity building in leading national and international project teams, in writing highly technical reports for the World Bank, IFC, AFDB, and other DFIs. He has developed over 100 ESG and sustainability reports in line with reporting standards, regulatory standards, and sustainability principles. Please give a round of applause for Dr. Tiwalade Adeniyi. Joining the panel, I'll be calling on Dr. Maurice Atoke. Dr. Maurice Atoke is the Chief Executive Officer for the African Business Coalition for Health, ABC Health, a social equity organization focused on mobilizing private sector's resources to improve health outcomes across Africa. Dr. Maurice's career spans across various industries and fields in both the private and public sector, where she has established herself as a skilled business strategist and expert in the organizational strategy. Please give a round of applause for Dr. Maurice Atoke. Next, I'll be calling, who will be joining us virtual. He is the Director for the United Nations Information in Nigeria, Mr. Ronald Kayanta. Please give a round of applause for him. He is the Director for the Center since 2015. Mr. Kayanja has worked for the United Nations since 1996 and has worked with the United Nations Peacekeeping Operation, where he served as governance advisor, working specially on media and civil society, and UNESCO as an advisor for communications and information in West Africa, based initially in Accra and subsequently in Abuja. Please give a round of applause for him. I hope he's with us online.
We are waiting for him.
Okay, we are waiting for him. So let me move on to our next panelist. Our next panelist would be Mr. Fisaya Adeniyi. Fisaya is a world changer who works closely with the CEO and executive leadership of Thrive to help execute business and business Thrive. Thrive is a fast-growing agricultural technology in Nigeria with a vision to build Africa that feeds herself and access to local and global markets for their commodities, impacting over 2,600 communities across 23 states in Nigeria. Please give a round of applause for Mr. Fisayo.
Something to lift.
And last but not least, we welcome our very beautiful moderator who will be taking over, Mrs. Liz Oluwadare. Mrs. Liz Oluwadare has extensive business development experience in the international business sector in Nigeria. She started her career in the sector as an export and business development support specialist with the USA-Nigeria Expanded Trade and Transport Project, where she was responsible for facilitating foreign trade linkages, providing, directing, demand-driven technical assistance and business support services to private sector-led firms in Nigeria. Please give a round of applause for Mrs. Liz Oluwadare. I'm also she's very, very beautiful.
Thank you very much, everyone, and good afternoon once again. Let me use this opportunity to congratulate the organizers of this event, Solution 17, in collaboration with LG. Well done. So our able panelists, we're taking the go on this event tailored towards the aftermath of COP27 that held earlier in November 2022 in Egypt. So we'll be starting. It's clear from this event and the antecedents before this session that Solution 17 is galvanizing and African solutions to go back and push it. We'll have an open mic session where all our panelists will talk on the net zero emissions, via social, environmental, and economic sustainability. So I'll start with you.
To the organizers of this event, it's a privilege and a pleasure to be here. I represent a company called Tribe. Our vision is very simple. Our vision is to build an Africa itself. And COP27 was just, rounded up not too long ago. But in my opinion, the discussions just begin. The actions as a result of those discussions are going to be taken after the event. So what does that look like in transforming the world to net zero? What is net zero? I'm not going to assume every single person here. I know we have students. I know that Mrs. Boluke has done an amazing job indoctrinating them in the climate change space. But just simply put, for the benefit of some people, if I put on a generator and I emit 1 kilogram of carbon into the atmosphere, and on in that same house, I have a wind turbine or a solar panel that generates the same amount of clean electricity, that facility is carbon neutral. It's taking away as much as it is given into the environment. So at my company, Tribe Agree, where I work with the CEO and the executive leadership, what does net zero look like for us? And how do we contribute to this from a social, environmental, and economic point? So we currently have been doing this for about 4 to 5 years, where we've been able to work with almost 500,000, about 430,000 smallholder farmers. We've helped them to triple their productivity as compared to the national average as farms. So we take up with data. So that's the social angle. It was this large network. If we hold one of the largest network of farmers in Nigeria and even in Africa. And we're going to get to 1 million by next year and 11 million farmers across the world in 5 years.
So we go to communities and just like maybe we meet the owner of the community, and we onboard these farmers in clusters, and we provide them the loans that they need and every single support, data-driven advisory and technology that they need to grow their products. And finally, we provide them access to premium markets. Just recently, our co-founder was present in Qatar, where we won a competition organized by Visa. We pitched against 4,000 companies from Silicon Valley, all across the world. And we emerged as the overall best company in the world to partner with Visa to open the gateway for some of our farmers to sell, like Aisha in Kano, to sell her products in Qatar. And payments should be done seamlessly from Kano to Qatar. She'll be paid instantly, she'll be able to sell her products anywhere in the world. And these are farmers grow some 6% of the entire maize consumed in this country. So the impact is there. Tribe Agric has gone on to plant trees and to partner with organizations and even in discussion with organizations just like Solution 17 to want to plant trees, especially economic trees, that will contribute to the fight against climate change. So net zero is possible. We believe it is very possible. There are many ways to attack it from. There's the energy direction, there's the agriculture direction. So I think it's just up to every single person to ask what is in your hand. Are you a painter? Are you an artist? Are you a musician? What space are you in? We are in the agri-tech space, so we have taken that approach to build African solutions to global problems. So we showed Qatar that it's possible that technology developed by Africans can be employed, recognized by Visa in Qatar, in America. I mean, they pitched all their solutions and they recognize the impact and the scale that Africa brings to the table. I'll leave with this last slide. When I was at Business France, France, wanted us to come and set up shop in France, and I was very curious. I just paused and I asked the ambassador, asked her, why are you so interested in having African companies come to France? What's in it for you? And I get a response. I said, it's very simple. Africa is on the rise, and you simply cannot ignore Africa. Any country or economy that attempts to ignore Africa is going to be on the losing side of history. Africa and India are on par currently, 1.3 billion people, 1.3 billion people, with an economy of $3 trillion in Africa and an economy of $3.1 trillion in India. So roughly similar world paths, a little discrepancies here and there. But what I want to show you is that it is possible. It is possible. It is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. To the system, Michael, thank you for having me here. As I introduced, I'm Maurice Atoke, I'm the CEO of African Business Coalition for Health. And thank you for the topic. It's really quite important that we have forums like this, where we have the opportunity to examine some of the things that have been said globally and how it impacts on Africa. For me, the major highlight, and I hope the world can gain audience to this, is that Africa has been prioritized as an emerging economy that has the tendencies to be most impacted by the race to net zero. What that means is that unlike Europe and more advanced environments, we have more opportunities because we're still growing. We're even lucky, we are luckier than the likes of Dubai. Because Dubai woke up about 2 decades ago, thereabout. It wasn't when the race to net zero was intensified. What that tells me is that there are more opportunities to build smart infrastructure smart communities, smart societies in Africa. However, it will take more than words. And it will take more than commitments by governments. It will take real actions by people. The largest resource we have in Africa is our population. And so when we step a bit back and we imagine the possible, what it means is that we have demographics of different age brackets, gender, and classes of people generally. That's our biggest resource. It also means that there's a likelihood that if we don't pay attention to the collaborative nature that can get us indeed through that race to net zero that is required by each demographic group, we will miss out largely on achieving that target. Where am I driving at? So the biggest thing for me, as an organization that is focused on Africa and its growth, is there needs to be more deliberate attempts across the demographics. The young in the society, the middle, online, in Africa. If you notice, some of our and yes, who suffers? The guys there. So if you think that it's dangerous, guess what? Because it might be there in the next 20 years, controlling what happens to you and I. And so I think reimagining the possible is that we take the new attention in this race to net zero, particularly in the decisions of all the technical details that needs to go in, to realize the lack of capacity in the older ones and determine what we are doing as a younger generation to support them. People say, what's my business now? It's always hard to say, you see, it's my business if my boss is not computer literate. Because he will be my boss for another 10 years or 5 years. And I'm going to suffer. So I have a stake. It's not a solution, way of reminding. Unfortunately, that's not the situation of Africa. If you're in an advanced environment, maybe it that is when you will know that as at 5 years ago, there was no center for cancer in Nigeria. So almost by default, we need to do more. We are not the typical casual statement maker. We need to imagine our situation and curate our solutions. And that takes me to the last piece I will say, aligning it to the race to net zero. Now, net zero comprises of a lot of opportunities to build infrastructures, but green infrastructures and smart ones. Somebody, especially the younger generation, who are particularly convinced that it is better, it is quicker, it is safer, it is more cost efficient to choose smart technology. They need beyond getting comfortable amongst themselves about these choices of infrastructure to be able to, in a result-oriented way, influence the illiterates that are in the aim of affairs. If you make it your business, it will continue to be your business for another 10 years. And an illiterate will govern you at sub-national level, at local level, at national level, at continental level in this Africa. And at the end of the day, I don't want to use that syndrome, because it has been so repeated. But that's what happens, you get frustrated. And so, where I want to leave this particular round of conversation is to challenge every young person in this room. It is not enough that you know in Africa. It is important that you get a moment to understand it, and then to participate in it. Ask them questions, grill them decisively. Don't believe with it, don't laugh when they make mistakes. It's dangerous. It's not that we decide when we will go to school, and she doesn't know how to choose whether it is Harvard or XYZ, and you're laughing. It's not funny. Be part of it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Make you go to go after summaries. So, good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here and see some familiar faces already. So, I would take things more from the practical nature of this net zero journey. And it's very important for us to understand that it's not just a phrase. A lot of technical inputs go into net zero. And I was very happy when Bulika came off stage and she was giving how they use technology to be able to track carbon sequestration, be able to track the carbon savings for each trip. Because what's being done is what a lot of multinationals are failed to do, and that is show transparency in this climate change fight. So kudos to you once again. And that is exactly what we need in this net zero journey. We can't lie anymore. We can't greenwash anymore. We can't say like we planted 2 million trees anymore. The trees, if they are not there, because we should like 5 years ago. Because if you lied 5 years ago, like if you lied ago, you planted 10 trees, 10 million trees. Unfortunately, so in that sense, it's something we need to understand in the net zero journey, measuring carbon, tracking carbon, giving your, and we have institutions to do that right now in the country. So environmentally, we have that technical part.
On the social side of things, of course, it's only people that can give us what we want. We have the best minds in Africa. I won't dwell much on that already because Tribe Agric and ABC Health have told us the fantastic labor we have in the country. So for the social part of it, carrying all demographics along is critical. But one area I would like to talk about is economics. Now, I've spent a couple of years advising financial institutions. I've worked in one and I currently work in another. And I can tell you one of the biggest challenges to this net zero journey is going to be finance. Already, the key speaker has spoken about it. Rich countries ready to drop money for poorer nations that are more affected by the crisis. If they are ready to do so, is it charity? Is it loan? Is it investment? Is it equity? Is it ridiculous bonds? Is it me and my 10th generation that will pay for such? It's at this point that we need to start understanding the finance behind all of this. If I give before back, you might back to Tribe Agric and I tell him we should talk about his balance sheets, he will tell you how many places they have to source for capital, how many places they have to source for grants. And that's the way it is. But why is it not easier to fund net zero or climate smart technologies as much as it is so easy to fund new gas or coal projects? Ended and last week, the United Kingdom fired up a coal plant, even with the new prime minister that was so committed to climate change. The energy crisis is real, that's what they say. But in Africa, Madagascar could not find funding for its gas pipeline. But I mean, we all know it. So the truth is still that we need finance, and the finance currently sitting in African financial institutions cannot do it alone. So we need GFI funding. So we call it, or FDI, we call it foreign direct investment. And now to get to this our net zero, it now allows us to think in innovative ways as Africans. How can I think of something that gets me to where I am and make sure that I can get funding at a very low rate? Because to be honest, charity is not readily available. We don't have $1 billion of funds sitting. You can get $1 million in charity, but $1 billion or $1 trillion required in Africa, you won't get that in charity. So somebody has to pay. And so for me, in this net zero journey, it's something I always encourage people with innovative ideas to do. Come to the financial institutions. So I currently work as the group head of sustainability at FMDQ. So FMDQ, of course, is a platform that we bring investors together to raise capital. And so we have a lot of investors that, I mean, even within the country that come to us and say, oh, we're looking for green projects. We're looking for green projects. And you can get several people like this in the room and talk about green projects. And that's when you realize some of those projects are not even green. So they might be yellowish green. So, and those things, these are financial guys. Immediately you start talking about the CO2, I don't know, they want to talk about the money. So how much can you pay back? And when are you going to start paying back? So these conversations need to be heard, need to be had. The financial institutions are aware, they want to do it, but it's also finding the right projects. Finding the project that answers they have a lot of capital that answers the requirement for that capital. And these are conversations that we need to have. So I was not surprised when in COP27 they talked about the loss and damage fund. But why I would say I was not surprised, it's not the first time we are raising a fund from COP. We had the adaptation fund, and till today, we know that Africans do not get up to 10% of that. So we had a loss and damage fund. But one thing that I was going to pick out of it is that it is also time for Africa to have its own loss and damage fund. So when we say that we are looking for foreign investment, we need to find innovations. We need to find things that they cannot resist putting their money into the business. So it's not a charity, really. And that's why economic is there. It's not charity. The economic part of it must be sustainable. If not, you won't get the results. I was very excited that before COP27, Nigeria finalized its energy transition plan. And I think it's something that everybody needs to key into, because our own net zero for 2060. I remember when the artist was talking about BRT. Yes, in that plan, transportation is the biggest emitter. And the more we go into the concept of e-mobility, which again, several Africans are already doing, and companies are available to support them. So as the final thought, I'll just say that we have the labor, we have the technical inputs, and we have the expertise in Africa, and then we have the resources to generate the money, because we need the money to get to net zero. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just take it from there. I think for me, one thing I always say is that sustainability is about the economy. It's not about any other thing. If you look at the way the world is set up, if you look at the first industrial revolution, the movement from the agri revolution, the first industrial, it was the first major globally. But today, we are having a transition from an industrial revolution that did not care about the society, about the environment, about the people in terms of jobs. So an industrial revolution that takes into account for everything. And that is why in coming with the Paris Agreement, one of the most important components was the just transition. Because the just transition is that, for example, let's say South Africa has agreed to they developed an investment plan that's a just energy transition to move the 85% dependence on coal to smart technology, and as the first African country to actually have a clear investment plan for just energy transition in the world. So now, that, so that transition plan counts for labor. Because if you look at the Celestial Declaration, just transition is clearly about regenerating the society, the environment, and decent jobs. So that is why this transition is very important. But I consign most times that there's this environmental compensation that says that there is a climate that does not consider the human person. That is a misnomer in itself. Because the truth of the matter is that the climate itself is about us. So anything that happens to us in terms of how we live, how we develop our economies, how we grow our businesses, is a big impact on the human person. So that is why the whole conversation, circular economy, regenerative agriculture, smart agriculture, is about the reuse of resources. Circularity is conversation so that there is no waste along the line. So the whole conversation of cradle to grade will next forward and more of cradle to cradle. So that is it. So the truth of the matter is that those actually is a genuine concern that what the economy gain for the financial aid for these products. So like I said, we need to be more creative. But this creativity is not possible without the market governance. The economy we see today in the world it was called. It was market governance mechanism. So we cannot use the same market governance approach that we used from the birth of capitalism, that association know that today. What is very important, crucial, is that the market governance is changed. So you see what America is doing, for example. The climate change and the inflation reduction in America is doing a lot of wonders. Funny enough, states like Texas and embracing these are things that all the Republicans, conservative, talk about, oh, we don't believe in climate change. But they are not concerned about economy. And changes the system all that in those societies. So I think the last month or so months back, EPA in America is funding, is actually trying to set up an environmental bank. The Biden administration has said that federal police will not be powered by gas, and move to smart technology. So a lot of things are happening in those countries, and that's what market governance does. So for me, the long term, we have the just energy transition in Nigeria, which is not yet a first and foremost. If you also have the climate change act, there are gaps from a market governance perspective. And until we address that, FFDQ will react, the NSCs will react, the business community will react, because we need the business community. We need all the players to come together to understand that moving to smart technologies, moving to e-mobility, smart transportation, regenerative agriculture is about economic development.
for us as a people and as a society. I think that's what it is in this moment.
Thank you very much to all our panelists for eloquently illustrating their points. So I'll start with you, Dr. Siwa. You were telling us about the yellowish and green projects. I think we're excited to know more about that. So basically, we understand that climate finance is really crucial at this time in the drive towards net zero. So I'll ask you, in terms of bankability of projects, I guess that's where you were touching on when you were talking about the yellowish, reddish, and greenish projects. What do you think key elements, that financiers will look out for in green projects that will suggest that they are bankable or they are scalable and sustainable towards a green economy? Thank you.
Okay, so I wouldn't want us to get too technical, but I think the first thing we need to understand is the use of terminologies. So financiers generally, when you call something a green project, it must be completely green. It must have been approved by the Climate Bonds Initiative. There would have been a pre-verification that shows that this project actually and truly saves emissions. Now, that process is expensive. As a project proponent, are you going to first get a loan to get a verification? But again, there are solutions in Nigeria. If we have the Nigerian Green Bond Market Development Program, what that program does is that it brings a lot of project proponents together and teaches them, guides them, gives them the awareness. I recently even partnered with FSD Africa to pay for such pre-verification certifications. So the idea, what we're just telling you is come with your idea that is green enough. There are a lot of institutes in this country that can guide you on how to get climate finance, but let us use the right terminologies. We can have sustainable projects. We can have, there are different things in the sustainable space, right? But a green project is a green project. A blue, if I go into blue projects, they are water related. And sustainability linked projects are projects that don't necessarily have to be green. So I can do an agri project that does some smart things, but I'm not saving emissions. I don't need to apply for it as a green project. So these are all the things that financiers have developed a standard. They have a rule that they follow. It's a global accepted standard. Project proponents need to be taught about these standards. And it goes for every sector. From the real estate sector, we have things like the green buildings, IFCH certified buildings, to all the way, like I said, to the agri sector. We have different standards depending on even the crop that you're planting. So I think it's very important for project proponents to know the standards that they need to abide with. Check within the country if their NGOs or even the government is helping to obtain those standards, and come to the, whether you're going to the NGX or the FMDQs, come to them and have the conversation that you want to meet investors. And you'll be surprised because, again, the finance is available. Let's just find the projects.
Thank you very much. It's widely known that Africa will need about $3 trillion for adaptation and mitigation, and Dr. Siwa has just told us that that is possible. Thank you for that. Okay, so I'll come to you, Mr. Pistani. So thank you for your wonderful presentation earlier. I guess one of the highlights of COP27 is the fact that Africa is suffering for the sins of the world. Yeah. We are about the least contributors to climate change as we see it today, yet we are the worst hit by the impacts. We've seen tremendous flooding, and the already fragile agricultural, food and water systems are now being threatened. So, to you, Fisayo, how can we build more resilient food systems that perhaps through climate smart agriculture?
Thank you very much. That was a very solid point. That's our doctor. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's easy to be a doctor. My brother just became a doctor this week, and I've watched almost a decade. You know, the effort it takes, the level of understanding you have to build in a field to be able to speak as an expert in that field. Talking about the food systems and building resilient food systems. I mean, there was a flooding that happened not so long ago. I'm sure all of us bought rice maybe for 5,000. We went to market to buy rice and decided that maybe I'll buy it. Because just one event showed us how vulnerable our entire supply chain as a country is. I mean, trucks couldn't pass, was it Niger, Lokoja side, and Lokoja, Kogi State. I actually did my OS in Kava. And that road was, blocked because of some challenges that our governments, did not solve when they were supposed to solve. And that left us, citizens, vulnerable. So what can we do? How can individuals, organizations, companies, students, entrepreneurs, bankers, what can we really do to build resilient food systems? When I met Mrs. Foluke, one of the philosophies that I was most intrigued by was the philosophy of growing what you eat. It sounds very simple, but at scale, it is infinitely powerful. At Tribe Agric, our vision is to build an Africa that feeds herself. Dangote, when we had a meeting with Dangote is one of our business partners, and one of his philosophies is something called import substitution, where you slowly eradicate the need for importing a commodity in a country. Then, once you have saturated that market, there was a time we needed to right now. The capacity that has been built over, I think, almost 3 decades, 2.5 decades, has made it such that if you want to build a house today, you don't need to think about FX, importing cement. That's a thing of the past with Dangote cement, BUA cement, and a couple of other alternatives. So that concept of import substitution is actually the philosophy of growing what you eat. But that was just applied in the real estate industry. So she has a garden in her house. I'm privileged to visit her one time. And she has some spices, she wants to cook something. She can just go outside and pluck this, pluck that. And in America, the wealthiest families are surprisingly farmers.
Yes.
My uncle worked with the US Navy for 22 years, and he's talking about his dream, and he's talking about how he wants to own a big farm. And I'm looking at him, if you come to Nigeria, you think you're not. But he wants to be able to go to the farm and pick a goat. He likes to call me, so he wants to be able to promote the food that he eats. So when as a company, if you want to go into business, don't think too quickly about how can I, import source my raw materials from China. You're sourcing from China, you're sourcing from Indonesia, you're sourcing from Russia, from Ukraine. I mean, let me shock you. I was reading the statistics, and after oil and gas, the largest imports we import into this country is wheat. The raw wheat, number 3. I can't remember, $269 billion of wheat. Guess what? We can grow wheat in this country, and we do grow wheat. In fact, I mean, we just grew Tribe Agric. We just when we noticed this, we scaled up our wheat production, and we tell the government, let the government do what the government is supposed to do. The government exists to be able to scale or help you scale ideally what it is you are already doing. So the government is not going to come and meet you and put money in your hand and put wheat and tell you to plant it. The government must meet you doing something. Yeah. So the government met Tribe Agric doing something, for example, and ask, okay, how can we help scale this up? That's why you have programs like maybe the CBN, alcohol borrowers, intervention programs. That's the government. Well, I'm not addressing the government. I'm addressing, entrepreneurs, thinkers and doers, business owners, academics, scholars. So how did we build resilience in the food system? We also partnered with, organizations like OCP, where our fertilizers, the inputs we give to our farmers, they are not just imported fertilizers from like Russia, they are custom blends. So you take a sample of the soil, you have your researchers, you have your scientists, every single person has a part to play. And what kind of mix of nutrients, of NPK, of the nutrients we can source locally in Nigeria would be good to help our farmers triple their productivity and double their income. That's our governing thought philosophy. So we need those kind of big partners, and you manufacture millions of bags of fertilizers, and you give that to farmers to help them to be able to grow their products. So you are localizing your value chain with a vision to entirely localize that value chain and even the supply chain. When you have achieved import substitution, I'm not speaking at the national scale, when you've finally achieved import substitution, you can now begin to think about exports. So these small steps are things we can take to help us achieve resilient food systems, localizing your production, and then think of beginning to export. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, a climate smart agricultural country is possible for us, and we are racing towards that. Dr. Morris, very quickly, in about 2 minutes, because you had shed a lot of light on this earlier, I would ask that you please talk briefly on the 3 pillars of sustainability and how this would be imbibed towards, youth and gender inclusion in this race towards net zero.
Okay, well, that's a very large question in the moment to address. I think first and foremost, at a country level, and we heard earlier, the market governance plays a very important role. And I think that was Godson's remarks. A large element of market governance is by the government, to the regulatory bodies, and the stakeholders themselves. What that means is that the governments of African countries needs to deliberately consider the 3 pillars of sustainability as areas and aspects where they want to, or through which they want to make the changes that are necessary. So you look at economics, like Dr. Tiwa largely spoke to. You look at the environment, and look at social. I was at a meeting earlier today. Somebody, I won't mention the organization, at a global level, they decided to replace the E in their ESG from environment to entrepreneurship. I think that is smart for Africa. Because one, as COP27 rightly identified, we are an emerging economy. Entrepreneurship is so important at this level. Startups, existing businesses, they're critical groups that both the government and the key stakeholders need to pay attention to. In terms of groups that cut across, you talk about gender, you talk about the demographics. I think also deliberately determining that these are areas of focus and the channels through which our development, our next phases of development will occur, in paying attention to mega trends and the issues that the world is talking about. I think we stand, to do things more rightly as Africa, because it almost seems as if the world is waking up to a lot of things that weren't really given a lot of attention before. So you talk about gender equality. 10 years ago, it wasn't a priority. We talk about paying attention to the girl child. A few years ago, it wasn't really, an issue. So as more and more exposure comes to the world, and Africa is able to get, audience around it, I think it's the opportunity that we have for it to be inculcated in our market governance, be it economics, be it social, be it environmental, aspects and topics. And until our leaders, are aware and decide to simply make these decisions, we will just be here sitting and speaking a lot of grammar that we've spoken. And we'll still live here with the same set of leaders, knowing nothing about what are you talking about, and so on and so forth. So I think beyond just having conversations, you and I need to do more, is to transfer in a way that is results oriented. So I think we should just also do less of judging and less of pointing fingers.
Right.
Because guess what? The guys who are there now, 20 years ago, we were saying, I wish so and so, when I get there, you are the ones there now.
Yes.
And in another 20 years, it's going to be such us. So the earlier we wake up to our actual realities and do less of grumbling and pointing fingers and really pay attention to these issues as local as they are and solve them either demographically, market governance. Africa and unfortunately, you see to a potential fund that does not work. The initial fund you get is a test. They know you need more, so they won't give you everything at once, even though that's all you ask for. So it's high time that Africa as a continent, as Nigeria as a nation, have a more a long way of reasoning things than the short method that we are accustomed to. So that even when not asked, you give account of what you've spent money on in a way that makes you appear responsible and transparent to your funders.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So to the final question, so the last but not the least in any way. So I would want you to touch on, to bring in the perspective of policy and investment regime currently as it stands. What do you think are the opportunities? You can just highlight two for the sake of time. Opportunities that you see in this space, and what do you think the policy regime is currently for Africa to launch its position as the solution provider to global problems? So putting this in better perspective, for instance, the AFC, the AFCTA would create the world's largest free trade zone involving about 54 countries and $3.4 trillion, I think, in possible financial transactions periodically. So what do you think are the biggest opportunities in this for us?
Thank you. I think there's a trend. But I think for me to understand what does policy mean to us in Africa? In the sense that in most things we used to see if you maybe develop a country, build road, for example, or you set up technical infrastructures that investment will come. That's not necessarily true. Because if you look at development, global development, investments in itself, and for example, job creation is a deliberate act. For me, in a model after is a good one for now in terms of the consolidation itself, but in terms of the implementation and pulling Africa together to be able to achieve what you just said is still far off what the great opportunity. And there's a great opportunity in what we call the sustainable development space, and it is sustainability and business is. And why do I say that? Recently, at COP27, Africa launched some African countries, Nigeria, from the lead. There's Kenya and Malawi, small African countries, on the African Capital Market Initiative. Last week or so, this week in the US, Usumado was speaking so much for the African Capital Market Initiative, which is going on. And again, why the African Capital Market Initiative is very important is because if you tie this around the just transition plans in Africa, and all the conversation around trying to achieve net zero from an economic thinking perspective, that makes a lot of sense, which means that a lot of jobs will be created, businesses will be smart, transportation smart, batteries, all that will spring on those businesses that will trigger, that new businesses that will create jobs. But for us to be able to achieve that and be able to latch on these opportunities, we need to be deliberate. Yes. And I remember Tiwa also talked about the green bond conversation, the global sustainability bonds, social bonds, green bonds. And I know a lot of state governments are thinking about that. There's even a particular state that actually trying to launch the first solution of the green bond in Nigeria at the moment. And again, what is the opportunity? The opportunity is supposed to actually bring in a job creation, because when we're talking about green infrastructures, and this infrastructures and this achieving the climate change, we're not looking at the job opportunity, which means we need to look at job opportunities, which means that we need to create new businesses or think about expanding the businesses that we have to better account for that. And if I look at the work I do on the work side from a policy perspective and a strategy perspective, the products, offerings, and policies taking like market governance to be able to bring about a new economic thinking for our society. So these opportunities are very important, like you said. And these plans are the energy transition plan in Nigeria. No, South Africa also have, I think Senegal also have, the COP27, they also have a plan, just the transition plan. So for us to be able to move what they're trying to rely on multinational organizations to get grants and all that, move and think from a business approach, because this is a business approach, solving where we are. No, they're not, like we know, we are not a major contributor to the climate issue, but they're very vulnerable to it.
Yes, yes.
And people also argue again that there are basic adaptation capabilities that we should have used. We didn't build them. Yes. You look at Lagos, for example, you can't compare to Holland, what it did. So this is past. We can't live on the past. So the question here is that how do we move forward to the future by developing these capabilities as an economy? And if you look at what is happening in the local space today, there are only initiatives to integrate adaptation as a developmental agenda. So it is not more business as usual in terms of thinking around infrastructure. And I know in particular TFI already doing research around how do we build infrastructures based on to be able to address these vulnerabilities. So these also opportunities for job creation. So that the insight, I think vegetable side, we don't really call anything. Not to look like more recently, we are still at 2%. So what it means is that we should forget about the conversation around the development and I say, no, that is not true. What we have today in terms of what we see, massive opportunity for us to leverage all these capabilities around us so that we can be able to leverage the governance right. If it's right, the business community, the banking sector, the FMDQ, all these guys will be interested, and the financial guys, who these guys speak to you, because what they will see is that there is opportunity.
Thank you very much. I know we have a lot of questions to ask the panelists, but for the sake of time, would request that you please write down your questions. These questions will be taken during lunch and networking, and you will also have opportunity after now to network with the panelists. Princess will be in charge of the question and answers, and will ensure that all your questions are adequately answered and gotten back to you. Thank you. So just as a means of wrap up for this session, I think what is clear from this is that climate change and of course governance is also a crucial part of this discourse. And that said, I think a couple of highlights that I will take from the submissions for me was a lot of learning is that one, we must leverage partnerships, whether at smallholder, at government level, as the other panelists mentioned, and the private sector would also be crucially involved as we must take action. Dr. Morris mentioned that we need to move beyond the talk and begin to walk the talk. And I think that is why organizations like Solutions are taking the ball right on to host this kind of events that will bring this nature of discourse, pushing us in the right direction as to where to go from now and putting infrastructures in place. I think another thing that came out for me is the innovation. Dr. Tiwa talked so much about this. We must be creative. We must curate solutions, locally adaptable solutions to global problems and challenges. I think we're in the right direction of that as well. So congratulations to Solution 17. Congratulations to everyone here for being a part of this. I think one final point is the issue of transparency and accountability is something that we cannot overflow. And we can assure every one of us that is listening to us at this time that in this organization, I mean Solution 17, we are poised to take action and maintain that level of transparency and accountability that is required to move or galvanize action for this cause. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this.
Thank you so much, all our wonderful panelists and our very beautiful moderators. I'm sure each and everyone, because our minds have been blown. We've learned so much, and we know the importance about pushing forward sustainability in not just Nigeria, but global in our own individual spaces. Thank you so much, and I would like our panel to keep seated. We have a very special video from the Public Affairs Officer, States Consul General, Mr. Joe Kuzik. He was here earlier, and it was recorded. So please turn your faces to the screen as we watch.
Very significant global problems we all face in Africa and in the rest of the world, and that is the issue of climate change. I want to discuss that. Once that Africa, the world, and Africa, I'd like to talk about great attention and a little bit about what happened. COP27 is which includes climate change, and then also talk about the role of art in contributing to finding actual solutions, actual consciousness about how we act on climate change. So it's obviously climate change is a huge problem facing every part of the world, but Africa in particular. 17 of the 20 most climate countries talk about it. So Africa has a huge say how this issue is resolved and must have a huge voice in it as well. And I think it is going to have that voice. Africa contributes very little to global warming and is experiencing disproportionate cost. I think it contributes around 3% to global warming, but it suffers much, much more than that. And I want to talk now about some of the things that we're working with African countries, the United States, and our other developed country partners in Europe, especially, but also in Asia, to assist Africa in combating this plague of climate change. For example, we've set up an adaptation fund, which is to create climate resilience among many African countries. And we've funded that now with $1 billion recently. So that will help countries implement climate change plans, find clean energy, and to adapt to some of the problems that this climate change is good, especially more extreme weather, more floods, more droughts that we're seeing across the continent, but also in other parts of the world as well. And then Africa obviously is going to be a huge center for clean energy. With the weather and the sun that Africa has, that's a natural attraction for solar energy, especially the wind power will also be a very strong energy source for Africa. And we're working with the African nations to create clean energy pathways for African countries. For example, just the other day, our Secretary of State Blinken at the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C., announced a new $290 million U.S. commitment to power Africa, which is already reaching 165 million people in Africa in terms of providing them with new energy sources. But this will lead to double that connection and also to find clean energy solutions for more energy for the continent as it pursues its development plans, which I think is doing very successfully at the moment. And what I want to leave you with is this notion that when we're working together with African nations, and we're seeing an example of that in the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit this week in Washington, we're very cognizant of the fact that a lot of the solutions to the global problems we're seeing are coming from Africa. So we like to say at the Council in Washington, Africa's solutions to global problems. And I think we're seeing that in many, many different ways. For example, Nigeria is fashioning a climate change program, which is the leading one in Africa on reducing methane gas emissions. The Gabon also engaged in very significant forestry protection plans, capturing global emissions as well. And a number of other countries in Africa are leading the way on climate change. And so I think that's a great example of Africa's solutions to global problems. Now, in terms of art and the way and its relationship to climate change, I think there's one simple basic thing to understand is that it's universal. It speaks across cultures, across countries, and it speaks to the heart, it speaks to the soul of anyone who sees it. And I think what we're seeing with climate change and the efforts to combat it are very similar, because climate change is a universal problem. It's not a local problem, it's not a regional problem, it's a universal, it's a global problem, just like art. And it tugs at our heart and forces us to come up with solutions. And I think Africa, in many respects, is leading Africa solutions to the global problem. So thank you very much. And I look forward to having more engagements with your organization.
Thank you so much. I'm sure each and everyone else have learned something from this lecture present. Please give a round of applause for our wonderful panel and thank you for the Thank you so much. Right now, without wasting much of our time, I would like to call on Ms. Doris Wambra, the digital manager for LG, as she speaks on decent work and economic growth for waste to wealth. Please give a round of applause for her.
Good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am very delighted to be here to discuss decent work and economic growth from waste to wealth. We all know the several sustainable goals that have been created for the 2030 agenda. And the ambitious goal is to end poverty with
without imposing its life support system. Economic growth is the 8th goal of SDG, or one of those that have been widely criticized as not contributing to protect the planet, because most people pretty much focus on protecting the planet, protecting people. However, the Center Work and Economic Growth places a huge focus on growing the economy. When you look at it categorically, it sort of helps us to end poverty. It helps us to to have zero hunger at the end of the day, and quality education, good health, and well-being. It still ties into the overall 17 goals that have been created. The decency of work should entail the social value and environmental harm of the good produced in a certain economy. A core question would be, if the respective work contributes to achieving the SDGs at large, the social value of work can also be evaluated by workers themselves. Policies such as voluntary jobs guarantee, working time reduction, work sharing, universal basic services, or even income would help provide decent lives, while reducing the pressure to accept indecent, including environmentally harmful employment. Innovation generally is recognized as a key driver of economic growth, and development can be obtained through research, which of course is the systematic search and investigation for more knowledge. Its extended version is what we call R&D, that's research and development. And it's a sure way of improving sustainable development by harnessing the potentials of, we see, petroleum, agriculture, and solid mineral resources in Nigeria. I believe everyone needs to, of course, we are driving through the perfect climate, we are driving through net zero, but if we are able to create the decent work, contributes to the economy, we are able to also drive towards this particular goal. Some people would want to say, okay, let's change it from decent work and let's just call it sustainable work and economic growth. That way we are directly tying into sustainability eventually. Innovations in process and product development has been established as to have a positive impact on businesses and industries in Nigeria. However, materials to product innovations have a more significant positive effect on technological and national development compared to process innovations. I want to believe that everybody here is very compliant with sustainability. We do not just dispose our items in the wrong way. So my question now would be for those who are a bit ignorant about this. Where exactly do you drop your old materials, your waste that you generate? Because I know the government have at one point made it compulsory for you to have different color of dustbin in your waste thing to separate at some point. But then it wasn't, not everybody is actually complimentary to that, because you go around and you don't see those different people separating their debts and all that. So the question is, from packaged boxes, used clothes, e-waste, used water bottles, all of this, where exactly do you think all these end up in? Some landfill, I guess. Unfortunately, the current economic model that we have involves take, make, use, and dispose, of which makes many of all these unused items end in landfills and waste sites across the country. For a pretty long time, economy in Nigeria has been linear. This means that raw materials are used to make products, and after their lifespan becomes waste and are thrown away. We know that waste is responsible for roughly 20% of global methane emissions from human activities, and dramatically scaling up efforts to reduce these emissions
can also deliver important health and economic development benefits. It is therefore imperative as a society and working economy to prevent waste and also encourage the reuse of materials and waste, which can in turn create economic value. Another question again, of course. So now I'm bringing it back home and with LG Electronics. So let's think back to the period where we got new appliances for the house. Let's say you got your new television, your new sound system. Just think back. You don't need to answer. Just think back. What exactly did you do with your cartons? What exactly, where did you dispose them? Imagine what has happened to them. It's probably decomposed and some other things that we would not want to talk about. Now, what we are doing at LG Electronics is introducing a concept of cycling, where you turn your cartons into things you can use in the house. If you have pets, you can turn it into a pet box. If you have even kids, you can turn it into pencil boxes for them. A lot of them go on YouTube and you can learn DIY. Okay, you of course may not have that time, but you can engage your younger siblings, younger kids, reuse some of these items. This is an example of something. This is an LG carton that was reused by one of Foluke's artists, and he turned it into a carrier bag. So these are so many possibilities that we can do to save the environment, if only we turn our waste into something better. I know one of Ms. Foluke's drive is to ensure that we have arts who can begin to work on turning the LG cartons. LG is just one brand. We have other brands that create physical products that come in cartons and packs. So if we all come together, we have someone who is willing to drive it forward. If we all come together, partner together, I believe the 2030 goal, I know a lot of us say we may not get there, but if we begin to make these individual activities by brands, then I think we'll be able to reduce, we'll be able to drive towards net zero. Now, similarly put, decent work and economic growth is very relevant to economic sustainability. Like I spoke, transforming our package boxes. There's certainly package boxes because this is one popular raw material you see outside. It could be different things. A lot of people make the bottles. I know a lot of drink brands these days are discussing reusing, recycling the bottles. We don't want to mention the brand, but I know now on the bottle of the brand, you'd always see recycle me on it. So if we begin to take this thing serious as brands, we would definitely help the economy be better and reduce outbreak of diseases that will come from this food composting. Many initiatives can be introduced aimed to promote a sustainable society. For instance, the Switch to Green program that can promote the use of biogas technology, e-waste management, organic agriculture, eco-industrial parks can also be explored. One of the key things that's also being driven by Solution 17 is the planting of trees, which is a very interesting one where you can monitor your trees. And the government can have policy implementation and legislations geared towards innovative and regenerative resources and consumption. Decent work and economic growth from waste to wealth, if well harnessed, can become a guiding force in business and governments, particularly diversifying our economy. The initiative can transform Nigeria's current informal and hazardous recycling in some quarters into a formally legislated system that benefits all actors, stakeholders, and investors. A platform for public-private collaboration and bilateral cooperation can be explored, which can include knowledge transfer by the government. I believe the government has access to a lot of this information, even if you're not collaborating directly, but like a group like Solution 17 would help disseminate this information to other brands. As a global leader in information technology with 30 production sites worldwide, LG Electronics has recognized that for ESG management to be effective, it needs to be integrated into a company's day-to-day operations. Starting from 2020-2021, we'll be introducing packages that are being recycled, different from the ones you see here. We don't have them down here yet. But coming the new models of TVs that would have packages that you can use in your house to do very interesting things. And the next step for us is actually drawing on the package and showing you exact things you can do. So you might not necessarily need to go online to check. You can just do something creative with the patterns there. To support its carbon neutrality goals, the company has transformed its factory complex in Changwon, South Korea, into a futuristic manufacturing hub for its home appliances line. So what we are doing now is we're calling on a lot of, it's not happening right now in Nigeria, but we have a lot of systems in a lot of developed countries where if you have used an appliance for, let's say, 10, 15, for very long time and dispose them, you can bring it back to us, it will be recycled and created, and we'll create a better product that will be shipped. So that way we are cutting down the different waste that will be introduced into the environment. LG is also committed to build a circular economy through waste recycling initiatives and improving waste treatment processes, and aims to recycle 95% of waste generated at its global production sites by 2030, up to 2%. 100,000 tons of recycled plastic manufacturing processes. Of course, to support these efforts, we already have a recycling center in key locations. We are moving towards one here in Nigeria eventually. We will start the little one that Solution 17 is already driving from waste to wealth. There should be a global scale of where we drive home the message to even people wherever you are. You can either return the pattern to us and to be used for something useful with our team of artists, or you can create something on your own so that we don't just dispose this. Proper waste management is definitely a means to driving economic growth, and is proud to be a partner in this growth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, LG Electronics, for being a part of this wonderful initiative. I think it's very wonderful that every sector needs to go into the aspects of sustainability, because our planet needs saving, and we have to act now. So right about now, I'm sure each and every one of us will be asking this question: what next? After we leave this room, after the dialogue that we all learned from, what next? What are we going home with? I think I would leave that question to be answered by the CEO and Project Director of the COP27 Solution 17 Initiative, Mrs. Veronica Michael.
Representing Suzuki by CFA now, and we are planting this tree here in Caleb British International School in support of climate change.
We are students of Caleb British International School, Lekki, Nigeria. We are excited to be tree managers taking climate action.
Thank you, Suzuki!
The largest distributor of cars in Nigeria, not just Suzuki, on around Nigeria, and so many of them. Imagine them joining with us to plant trees all around Nigeria. Why is that? We have transparency. So Suzuki will get the location in Nigeria and see on their phone that this is located right here in, say, Padore, and they get there, they see, and they're monitoring. Everybody's monitoring. When we were there 2 days ago, a student just said, we have 260 carbon sequestered already. That's so interesting, and that's what we're doing. Now, what next for us? Please, I don't even know where myself. Nobody should know. I just look at this. We need to network, talk more about what we've done. We're in less than 5 minutes. So what next for us to see? I need to have that slide on. Right, technology-driven agriculture. It's a way of creating an ecosystem. Just watch me. That ecosystem is a cloud. On that cloud, we have the people in the we have the people in Niger State, we have the people in those states coming together on our ecosystem. See how we become, we're not going to be a bank. We're going to have a bank that we're plugging into. We will run the financials, but we'll set the pace for the financials to be run. Next slide, please. So, I've said a lot about this. We're tackling climate mitigation. I just don't want to be talking about climate. Like the bankers who asked us, where is the money? Show me the money. You show me the money aspect that we're going into right now. So we just don't want to say, like I said earlier, that we are moving to villages. We're not just moving to villages to plant or to do cassava or to plant rice or, that's not what we're doing. What we're doing right now, this is our ecosystem. The total ecosystem of what we are doing right there in the United States. And we have planned for that. There are L17 communities where we have women, youth, suppliers, service providers, input suppliers, all of that, they are registry. Good enough, our head of technology in our organization, has already created the ecosystem. In that ecosystem, we don't care whether you are in Nigeria, you never use the technology. We're partnering with one of technology communication company here in Lagos. They are going to be giving us like some phones. Those phones are not iPhone. What do? They can communicate with us. They can push USSD code. We can do all of that. All of these people, the first set of farmers that will take on in is 100. We already have a cluster. They register on this S17 community. Everybody, I don't care what you're doing. If you are cutting grass, you are on that S17 community. What is that? An organization in somewhere that I'm not mentioning is giving us some couple of thousands of dollars in some 6 digits, okay? Now, they could go back end and monitor how many people get money to, because we will not pay you one. 1,000 naira will not come from an organization to you. It has to come from that ecosystem called S17. So S17 pays all the others within the ecosystem. So one of the lessons we have learned in Lagos in the last 6 months or so, oh my God, we were thinking that we could get seedlings everywhere. So we went to Ado and all of that. So we realized that in one school we have been planted over 50 trees.
Yes.
That's where our government is not there. When you plant, the cutting of tape, that's where it stopped in Nigeria. Yeah. And that's why we don't see those crops anymore. Yeah. No, we don't do that. So a student is a manager, and we have all the teachers in an ecosystem called WhatsApp. And so if a student comes to the teacher that my tree is not doing well, and then we send our team to that place to look at the tree. The tree is already dying in a place. Why? Technology is telling us that it's not even working anymore. So we are going to be planting. The first step in our project is to distribute seeds to the farmers in these local communities. So their first level of making money, we buy like coconuts for 7,000 acres. We buy, because we are planting economic street, we buy like citrus, mangoes, and all of that, like 2,500 and all of that. But you know what? This farmer will grow all of this for us at less than 1,000. We will still buy. We are no longer going to buy at 3,000. People will now buy at 2,000. They already make 1K. Meaning that we're developing ecosystem that is making money from our level 1 after registration with us. So they grow all of these seedlings. Guess what? We buy these seedlings from them, we distribute to them again. Look at the level of profits. So they make their profit from growing seedling. And guess what? We have used 2 months to grow. We also used 3 months. Because we became farmers when we could not, the frustration was too much. We started monitoring our seedling bank. So when you have seedling bank, for instance, in Ekiti, 100 farmers, each is going to run the first 200 seeds for us. You can imagine 200 times 100 people. And we're not running the project per farmer, we're running per household. So it's a cousin of cousin, but the maximum is 6. So meaning that within the 6 family of 6, one person could just be tendering, one will be applying manure. So the money we are paying that community goes to one family. So we want to generate wealth, rural prosperity, and that's what the seedling bank is all about. The agroforestry. I don't want to go into the jargon of agroforestry, but one thing is clear: we are planting trees on this line. In between the next trees, we have the crops, the cassavas. You know, we have technology to monitor it, we're giving them free of charge. So we have the trees, like we're choosing cashew and 2 others. So the farmer, the cluster 1, is planting, say, 50 trees on an hectare. They are not going to send their farms. The community has given us farm settlement, so that our technology will not go to 100 places. We're doing it in one area, one place. That's what we're doing. So what happens then? We monitor for them. We'll be in Lagos. We only have our farm managers doing all of that thing, and we're monitoring. So the push notification is to enable them to communicate with us in local language.
Yes.
Whatever language they're speaking in those areas, whether be it in Niger, Ondo, or Ekiti, they will be pushing it. It's so simple to develop Nigeria. We just need to drive technology. And so, agroforestry, at the end of 3 years, now our cashew is still growing, and we have access to markets which will link them, meaning that whatever is sold or what they are growing with best practices is sold from the beginning. Somebody is monitoring all the technology because we are growing from existing markets. See how simple it is. And they give their specification. So from agroforestry, we go into the digital market. This is where the bank comes in. You are buying those things. The technology is developed already. We have them all set up. We are plugging to a commercial bank. A commercial bank will run our backends. They are opening accounts on our page, but the transaction is actually being plugged to a commercial bank. So if we have 2,000 people or 3,000 people on our database, whatever money that will be spent on this project will be seen back end. So what happened to our financier in Asia can actually go back in and check transaction. We can run graphs. Oh, how much has gone into the system? We need that to know a lot more financial. Okay, how much has been spent? The data chart and all of that. That means the $100,000 will become $1 million. You know what? They are monitoring, they are actually buying. Remember one thing I've not mentioned, carbon credit. All of these trees, all of the carbon that we generated in all those communities, we're already capturing them, turning them to money. Now, the tricky thing and the nicest thing out of this project is the farmers are sharing profits between the management of the organization that is managing the entire system and them, because the entire project is funded from the beginning. But from year 2, they already made money. The increase will still monitor. Now, it is easier to replicate in the local government. 1, 2, 3, Nigeria is going to be beautiful. Let us not think of Japan. It is just creativity and innovation. And how are we powering this? When Sarah was talking, I'm so happy because Sarah was a student of Covenant University when we brought our project to Covenant University and said, we need to pitch and get some, they are now my teacher though. So I'm no longer in the level of my mates. I'm already within the secondary school and undergraduates. I tell them, I think they are ready. Because Sarah, what's going on? Sarah was a student at that time. I remember Sarah was part of the first United Nations Sustainable Development Goals tax that was set up in Covenant University, and we beat it to New York. Sarah spoke at that event. I remember I was in New York and I was happy to to what was going on in Communal University. That was what took their rank up there. Why? We know that they are growing this kind of creativity and community already in Nigeria. We just need to tap into them. Today, Sarah is my lecturer. He graduated from the university, was first class in petroleum engineering. Today, it's all over there with agriculture and all of that. I'm happy to learn from all of these people. So, Sarah is an AI expert. So when I have anything, I tap knowledge. AI, how do we do this? And believe me, we're growing day by day. Why? Because we have teeming youth population that are ready to contribute, even when we're not paying them. You know what they are seeing? They are seeing the future. So we're growing future entrepreneurs in the technology sector, in different sectors of Nigerian economy, and it is working. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is not a joke that we're doing. We are working the talk. And this is the time for all of us to come together and work for a greater Nigeria. It's not going to be like Dr. Morris said. It's not going to happen overnight. We need to put a lot of effort. We need to be intentional about what we are doing. If you're a financial institution, you need to think about all of these things and look out for the numbers. If I empower this 1, 2, 3, 4 startup, what happened to my organization? How many people will I impact? What kind of figure would I be looking into in the next 5 years? And that is why we are solutions. Thank you very much for being part of this great.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Williman. Right now, we have come to the end of this very wonderful event. Thank you so much to the audience and for our virtual audience. We actually have refreshments for everyone. So after this event, please make your way to the restaurant, the lunch, where you are. So yes, thank you so much for being a part of this post-COP27 dialogue. And I'm sure everyone is going home here with something very special. Thank you. My name is Mrs. Smiley. Yes. Thank you to our online audience for taking your time to join us. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.